Okay, the next section to our review that's going to be tested is special right triangles. So I have some notes here for you. The picture I have in here, your 45, 45, 90, that is on your formula chart, but maybe you need to also recognize nothing changes. Always opposite of the right angle is your hypotenuse. But XX could represent an LL or your leg. Okay, these are both going to be the same. Now, what I've added are some formulas that are not on the formula chart. And if you memorize this, it can make the work a whole lot faster. So if you are trying to find the leg and they're giving you the hypotenuse, you take the hypotenuse times the square root of 2 over 2. And if you have the hypotenuse, you want to try to find the leg. You have the leg, you want to find the hypotenuse. Just say H equals the leg. This represents the leg times the square root of 2. And you just put that together, okay? And we'll practice that on the next set of videos. And then for 30, 60, 90 here, again, I have the formula, the picture that's on the formula chart. The short leg is your X. That's the short leg here, my blue here. And then long leg is X square root of 3. That represents the short leg times the square root of 3. And then the hypotenuse is always double the short leg, 2x. And that was our H here. So I'm not sure if you can tell that, but just add some additional labeling and some extra formulas to help you recognize what to do. You are doing a good job of picking the formula and then applying it, but you need to get in a habit of start memorizing that formula. All right, so for your assessment of special right triangles, it's going to be a multi-step. It's going to be compound. You're not going to have just one triangle. You're going to have two. So to help you with that, start with the triangle that you have a side measure for. No variables, a number. So if I look at this, this is the one I want to start with, this triangle here, because I have the 7 that represents the leg. So I see right now that triangle, I'm just going to move it over here to the side. That triangle, if you want to redraw it, that would be great, is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And what we're going to need to do is we need to label what we know about that triangle. Well, in a 45, 45, 90, some of you want to say X, that's fine. X squared root of 2. Or you could say, this is my leg, L, and this is my hypotenuse. What do I have? I have this part that's given to us. This represents the leg. So I know that the other leg is 7. And to get to the hypotenuse, since that is my X, I'm just plugging that number in place of X. So my hypotenuse is 7 square root of 2. So I'm just going to make sure you understand where that part is. Here's your hypotenuse right here. That is also the leg and its composite, the adjacent triangle. So if, let's see if it'll let me do it. Yeah, we're right here. I'll leave it there. I know that that leg now is 7 square root of 2, which is over here because the two legs are the same. So to get to the hypotenuse, it's whatever the leg is times square root of 2. Well, our leg is the 7 root 2. So I'm just going to kind of come right here. I'm going to plug this number in for the leg. So 7 root 2 times root 2. Now, this comes out, I always check. If you get a decimal answer, then that means you have to simplify the radical. But if you put the 7 square root of 2, tab over so you can get that times outside of the radical, not underneath. Square root of 2, hit enter. It's a whole number. It's 14. Okay, so that takes care of number 5 for us. So let's do another one. Let's look at number 7. Remember, I'm going to do the left side. You take care of the right side. All right, and we'll check in class. So on number 7, I will need to start here because we have the 10 that represents, let's look at it separately. That 10, I put that 10 here. I put that 60 here and that right angle. What does this 10 represent? This would have been a 30. That's the short leg, okay? So then we still have the hypotenuse and the long leg. So if that is the short leg, then I could get the long leg simply by doing x square root of 3. X represents that short leg square root of 3. So that means right here, take that short leg, which I know is 10 square root of 3. So now that is also the short leg in this large, the second triangle, which is also, because this is 30, opposite, the opposite to 30 is always the short leg. We're trying to find x. This is the long leg. To get to your long leg, you have the formula x squared root of 3, or you take whatever the short leg is, you multiply by the square root of 3. Well, we know what our short leg is. It is that 10 root 3. So now we're just multiplying that by the square root of 3. Put that in the calculator. That comes out to be a whole number again. And our answer is 30. 30 is the x. Okay. So please take the time to try to do 6 and 8. Okay. And if you're not too sure, just ask questions in class on Monday. So then we get into Sohcahtoa. So I'm going to pause the video um, before we go ahead. And actually, let's just do it all on this. Let's see what time we're looking at. Yeah, we can probably keep it underneath 10. So need you to, well, you pause the video. Get down your notes, okay? We need to label, understand that you got to have some type of angle. Sometimes we give that angle an x to represent it. Sometimes we do an x instead of theta. But that's our reference angle. That's usually our starting point. You know the parts in relationship to the angle. Because this is theta, I go across, that represents opposite. Across from the angle, theta, is opposite. Hypotenuse is always across from the right angle, that doesn't change. But adjacent means it's next to, right next to theta, right next to the angle. So all right, we have some 5 steps here. We're going to kind of condense it to probably 3 or 4. But the first step is going to remain the same always. Mark the angle, circle it. Then label your sides in relationship to the angle. That means that's when we do our opposite, hypotenuse and adjacent. Then we got to decide which trig function it is. We're going to write it and solve it. Now this is important. Knowing what to do when we see our x. So if x is on top, we multiply. If x is on the bottom, you divide. If x is inside the triangle, you take the inverse. And that's when we have those negative, sine negative ones, like y'all like to say. All right, so I went ahead, oops, here, I'll scroll down. I went ahead and put down these steps for this section right here. So on number 9, we're going to first circle the angle. That angle would be exactly 58. Then we're going to label the sides in relation to the angle. So if I label the sides, 18 we should see is the hypotenuse. I'm just going to put H for that. X is across from what I circle, so that's the opposite. So I'm going to put an O. Then we're going to write the trig function and solve it. So we got to think to ourselves, what deals with the O and the H? Right here, here's the O and H. That's sine. So you would write sine of the angle, which is 58, equals opposite over hypotenuse. We're putting the O over the H. Well, who's the O? That was the X. Okay. So now we're going to put that with X. Who was the H? That was the 18. So we're going to put 18 at the bottom. So we got X over 18. And now X is on top. What do we do whenever time X is on top? Exactly, we multiply. So if you want to shoot, you can put this over 1 and cross multiply and get there. But just get in the habit of remembering. X on top, you multiply. So X equals, and when we multiply, we always do the number first. The number is the 18. This is what we call the trig function. So we say 18 times the sine, of 58. And so we can type that into our calculator. 18 times, go hit trig, is right next to the 7. Hit that sine, hit that 58, hit that enter, and we round to the nearest tenth. So that ends up becoming 15.3, which is our A. Okay, our answer is A. All right, so let's try 11. Remember, I'm going to stay on the left side. You take care of the right side. So you can use this to help you with the right side. 37 is our angle. I'm hoping you realize x is the adjacent and 16 is the hypotenuse. So who deals with adjacent and a hypotenuse, or hypotenuse and adjacent? That is cosine. So we do cosine of 37 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. We're doing the A over H. So that is x over 16. Again, x is on top. So what do we do? Exactly, multiply. So that is 16 times the cosine of 37. So we gotta put that in our calculator. Once we do so, we get C. Okay. All right. So that takes care of that section right there. Like I said, you take care of the right side. I will take care of the left side. Practice makes perfect. Perfect practice. Definitely perfect.